Madrid, how are you doing? So, I've spent the last couple of years building AI native SaaS applications, spending time with OpenAI directly. I was actually on stage at their first OpenAI Developer Day last November, hanging out with them, talking about the business of AI. You can look it up on YouTube. And I'm here to share with you some of my reflections and lessons. Part of the reason I'm doing this is because all of us are going to be involved in building new wave of applications using artificial intelligence, all of you. Even if you don't know it, that's what's probably going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years. So can I just say that it's a pleasure to see all these amazing product people. Give yourselves a round of applause. I love PMs. How do I advance? Oh, I have a clicker here apparently, so I have to go get it. I love PMs. I've been a product manager for over 20 years. I'm not going to say how much longer because it will date me. But I'm a product and design leader as well. I am a founder, a mentor. I spend a lot of time coaching both established companies, but my sweet spot, the thing that I love the most, is early stage companies because they're the most innovative. My partner and I are writing a book on building rocket ships, which is thinking about how to lead product in product-led companies, and it will launch in August. So one of the things I'm excited about, and the book it's been 2 years, but it's really it's for you. It's an expression of 20 years of knowledge, working at Microsoft, at Twitter, at Atlassian, at Typeform, at Calendly. The last thing I did, obviously, was I was a chief product officer at Typeform up until super recently. And I'm spending a little more time away from that, working on building new kinds of AI software companies. I'm building an accelerator in Africa right now and a studio in Austin, Texas, which is where I live. All right. When I left Twitter, I won't talk about it very much, but when I left Twitter, oh, sorry, my bad. When I left Twitter, Elon Musk had just moved in. I was in charge of all the conversations at Twitter, so tweets, DMs, audio messages, all the crypto and all the Web3 stuff, the NFT profile, tipping, all of those things were part of the conversations team, which I was head of at Twitter. And when I left, because when Elon came, I didn't want to stay anymore, I thought I would go into. People are laughing. I won't take any questions about Twitter. So, but when I left Twitter, something happened. Can someone guess what happened in 2022? Anyone guess? Okay, GPT 3.0 came out. And when GPT came out, I looked at some of the demos and I was completely shocked. I was like, oh my God, how can I invest and build new companies when I don't know how to actually do this myself, which is what's going to come around in the future. And so I thought about it, and I joined Typeform. And at Typeform, we created this new product. Obviously, does everyone know Typeform here? Because, I spent a lot of time in Barcelona, and this is my first time in Madrid, so I'm looking forward to hanging out here. But at Typeform, amazing company, very successful. We also, in the last 2 years, built an AI-driven application. We tried to disrupt ourselves. And that's what gave birth to Formless. So we're going to play a little video and show you what Formless is. Then I'll talk about AI, then talk about the experience with Formless, because I think examples from a practical experience is what's going to help you. So let's go. I hope you don't mind if I dance on stage. right, let's give that a real round of applause. So that is Formless by Typeform. It's a new product. I'm not here to really like market it or anything like that. I'm just to say that this is one of the things that we created at Typeform. So let's go back a bit. AI has been around for a long time. If you're in computing, then you know that for the last 20 years we've been talking about some kind of AI, natural language processing, machine learning. These are marketing words we use all the time. So what's different? Well, the thing is, actually we've been working on machine learning and NLP for a very long time. At Microsoft, we did a lot with handwriting, pen computing. This was all machine learning. Google Translate is machine learning. Even at Typeform, one of the things that we did was we used a lot of data to start to predict how long it takes to fill a form. So when you create a form at Typeform, we use a predictive model to say, it's going to take you 3 minutes to fill this form. And by putting that information in the form up front, people completed forms more because people don't want to take a 10-minute form. So if we say like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, people are like, oh, okay, I know how long it will take. They're going to do the form, and it works really well. But these old AI techniques are becoming obsolete, right? In fact, at Typeform, our whole data science was around machine learning. But that's not what's changing the world today. That's very, very important to know. What's changing the world today is transformer-based models. Does anyone who know what a transformer-based model is? Knows that word? Okay. I think I need more people to know what transformer-based technology is. And it all started in 2017. So let's look at a timeline. In 2017, 8 Google researchers wrote a paper. I think it was called Intention is All You Need, or Attention is All You Need. You can Google it. But this was the seminal paper that kicked off the large language model revolution. And I need all of you potentially to go read that paper to get to know this, because I know every PM needs to understand the basis of this. It shouldn't be mysterious to you. If someone says AI, generative models, you should know what it is. So they wrote this paper, and to understand this paper, you have to go back a bit. Neural networks, which is what this paper is based on, was a research technique started in the 40s and 50s in the United States. And people decided that the way they were going to solve artificial intelligence was teach it how the brain thinks. And the brain is full of neurons, right? So that's why we called it neural networks. Now, by the time I was in grad school for PhD at the University of Southern California, many years later, neural networks had hit a peak, a plateau. It wasn't fun anymore. They weren't solving unique problems. One of the test problems and the test cases for neural networks is image recognition. Do you know one of the things that people are really good at, people have superpowers at? It is vision. You see a picture of yourself as a child, and you're like, yeah, that was me. Or you see your sister, even if it's clear black and white, humans are really good at vision. And for some reason, we couldn't teach computers how to see as good as us, which was a problem, because how can you be more intelligent, artificial intelligence, if you can't do that? And so neural networks have plateaued. And that's what gave the impetus to our machine learning cousins, natural language processing took off. That was the peak of computer science at the time. But when they wrote this paper, they solved the fundamental problem, and they predicted, based on new techniques, that these transformer-based models, which is like a hierarchy of multiple neural networks, would beat all the old techniques at some point. Now, there were 2 bottlenecks to the paper, right? One was compute. You needed a lot of compute, a lot of GPU processing power. And the second is data. We still needed a lot of data to train these foundation models. But after this paper, all those researchers scattered, OpenAI, Anthropic, and so on and so forth, and that's how we start to see, OpenAI was started in 2015, we started to see GPT-1, GPT-2, all those things were born. And now we see Mistral in France, we see the stuff from Anthropic. This is the era of foundation models, and also the era when they became private, because all of these things were research papers and they became private. Now, most of the most capable models are still private, but there's still a lot of open source models, so there's a lot to play with. One of the things that I use at work or in my personal life is something called LLM Studio. You can download all kinds of models, the free ones, and play with them yourself, and you should. Now, what's happening next is that people are thinking about building artificial general intelligence. Artificial general intelligence is, there are many definitions for it, but what it really means, I think, according to Sam Altman, is that AI that can invent new science, that can create new things. So if there's a new cosmological constant, if there's a new version of gravity, things that can do all some of those things, that's what people are gunning for. Now, I want to pause for a second because I don't want to scare anyone and talk a little bit about some things that are important to understand about this AI revolution, something that you need to internalize. One is, things are going to change very fast. Now, the thing and the places where things change almost immediately is computing, our industry. You can already see it, right? I'm going to give you another example, but did anyone watch the announcements that happened on Monday and Tuesday this week, right? Was your mind blown, right? Well, I guess people's minds weren't blown, okay. No, look, if you think about it, your mind should be blown because the things you can do with that stuff is amazing. We'll talk about it in a second. But the other thing that's going to change is economies, right? If I can do 3 times more than what I could do before, what are the implications of that? How many jobs will hire as many people as they do today because it's not about replacement, it's about augmentation. People will be able to have superpowers with AI, and that will change economies, it will change politics, right? And it will change countries. How about science and research? Now, before, science and research, the way it works is someone will come up with a theory. You know, Einstein comes up with a theory of relativity. We spend the next 100 years trying to prove or disprove the theory with experimental physics. And so people at CERN in Switzerland, everywhere in the world are trying to prove the Bose-Einstein postulate or something like that. That's how it works. Very recently, something remarkable happened in the era of science. The world has been trying to solve nuclear fusion, energy generation through hydrogen, for a very long time. But that involves hydrogen, plasma states, high energy states that are very hard to control in order to create new energy. A transformer-based model simulated billions of these reactions and said, this one will work. And based on that selection, we could create a net positive energy gain from nuclear fusion. Because of these models, nuclear fusion, which is unlimited energy for the planet, is closer to us. Now, let me tell you something weird about that. Scientists don't know the physics of why that particular reaction worked. So for the first time in human history, well, not the first time maybe, but we're going to get there very fast, the experimental guys solved the problem before the theoretical guys. So this is also going to transform science. You've heard about IBM's AlphaFold. People are folding proteins in ways that nature hasn't seen because we can run through 1 billion variations using these transformer models, and we're trying to solve new things. So diseases will be cured, and so on and so forth, because of this technology. The last thing I want to say is defense. Defense is going to change, right? In war, for the last 5,000 years, you fight, you throw people, right, at it, you kill people, and then eventually no one can win, and then you sit down and you work out peace, right? If you have AI fighting drones or whatever it is, if my AI is better than your AI, guess who wins? I win. So AI is about to transform war. In fact, the major nations are actually right now working out how to sign deals so that they don't fight with AI in the open. So my point is, this is going to change. Now, a few things before I move on to this, because I'm spending a lot of time on this, is humanity is still very special. You can't teach an AI to be kind. So these things will not replace our essential humanity, I don't think. And AI also won't change the world like you expect. It's not just whiz-bang technologies. What it will do is to shift the economics. So the ability to make great software will become cheaper. And we'll talk a little bit about it. But the other thing to note is that AI is based on, right now, crawlable internet data. How much data, human knowledge, is on the internet, do you think? Anyone take a guess? Just anyone. How much of human data is on the internet? How much? So maybe like 20% max, right? Is all the knowledge in the Aboriginals in Australia on the internet? Probably not. Icelandic knowledge knowledge from Nigeria, from Africa, is it on the internet? A lot of it is not. And so what you really want is AI that can understand the entire world, understand human history, and it doesn't exist. So there's still a long way to go, even though there's a lot of information on the internet. Languages. AI can't speak languages, so this is going to be a challenge. The last mile is going to be universal language, like Star Trek. It's going to be all that knowledge that's offline, getting it online so that AI can deal with it. So, I'm going to talk about a very important concept. A lot of people today are not painting natively, and this is important for you. A lot of people are not painting natively with AI, okay? Because AI is going to change so many things, and this idea of, is AI at the core, or is it just a sprinkling at the edge of your software? Let's talk about Monday's announcement. OpenAI announced for Omni, a multimodal model that can see your face, respond to your tone of voice, respond to your expressions in real time, and respond in less than 300 milliseconds, which is as fast as humans. You can interrupt it and it will work exactly right. Tell me what it disrupts, right? It makes Siri obsolete. How long has Apple worked on Siri? Maybe a decade? How much money have they put into it? How many lines of code? Maybe millions? On Monday, OpenAI showed software that made it completely obsolete, 0. So Apple has to write down the cost. What happens to the team at Siri, right? You, in one weekend, can build a better Siri based on what happened on Monday. You can do it. You can do it. In fact, you don't even need a developer. You could ask OpenAI to write the code to do it if you want it, which is completely mind-blowing. So what's going to happen now with us is that old software built on thousands of lines of code will slowly become obsolete. It will slowly be written down. All those big companies have to start again from scratch with AI at the core. Now, the other idea is AI at the edge. And I'll illustrate this because we did both things at Typeform, which is you take some of the AI and you use it to sort of enhance your old code base and maybe enhance your workflows. There's nothing completely wrong with that. But I predict that the people who will succeed are the people who will paint on this new canvas in a very native way, right? One of the things that you have to remember is when the internet age came out, and we all had desktop software. I don't know if you guys are old enough to know this, but in the early days, people just made internet-enabled desktop applications. And very quickly, though, native applications started to come out. You started to see Twitter. You started to see Shazam. Salesforce was born on the web. It wasn't a desktop desktop CRM. It was literally just online, which was revolutionary. I mean, it seems old to us now, but it was revolutionary at the time. It usually takes some time for people to get a paradigm shift. Even now, some of you don't see that we're having a paradigm shift. You see demos online. So AI native apps will have the same trajectory. Over the next 2 to 3 years, people will start to grapple with it. You'll start to grapple with it. And, but fundamentally, eventually, people will start to do this in a very native way. Now, one of the examples I like to give is Notion. Who uses Notion? Yeah? A lot of people use Notion. Who uses the AI features in Notion? So much fewer people. To me, no shade on Notion, some of the ways that AI is used in Notion is AI at the edge. You know, you do a right click, it says, ask the AI, but to ask the AI takes more time than to just do the bullet point and the formatting you want it to do, which doesn't help me very much, right? So Notion is playing with this, but it's not yet fundamental, it's not yet at the core. But if you think about applications at the core with AI, you think of a co-pilot, generate code immediately, test code. You look at agent technology from the Tuesday announcement at Google I/O. You look at Formless, which I just showed you a video about and we'll talk about a little deeper in a second. The people who will win are in the second category. You can't just sprinkle AI on top of your application and think it's going to work. Last thing I'll say, because some of you are engineers, as amazing as all the code is that we've written, in the end, it's very brittle. It's like it's a glass house. If you look at code, really, it's algorithms and a lot of conditional case handling, very brittle. But when you put an AI at the core of your software, then all those conditionals can be handled much more easily. You know, if you send a problem to, say, OpenAI, and by the way, I'm not glorifying any of these things. I'm not a shill. I don't own shares in any of these companies. But if you think about what it is for an LLM to be at the core, and you're trying to make next generation Siri, you're not saying, if this, do that, if this, do that. All you're doing is you're saying, the human is talking, handle it. And then you're building the interface around it. It's so much more powerful than writing 1,000 lines of code to handle every variation of every human being on the planet and test every case. So this is very important because it's going to change how we build software. All right, I'm going to talk about one more thing before we get into Typeform and we get into Formless. And this is very, very important, so I want everyone to listen to me. Like I said, I've been a product manager for over 20 years. And when I started at Microsoft back in the day, when I was just 20 years old, the way we wrote software, we did specifications. That's what we called them, even before use cases. And what this really was how software should behave, right? And how humans should use it. That's what we wrote. We made technology that controlled humans. We said, human, this is how to use software, right? Even if it wasn't natural, that's what we wrote, early days. But then we advanced, right? Product management got better. And we started writing use cases. And that is essentially the idea that how do people want to use the software? That's a use case. And if you fast forward to today, you have all these frameworks. You have jobs to be done. But I want to tell you something. The thing you should think about is your customer's workflow, okay? A workflow is a series of jobs to be done that are connected to a goal that your customer has. And everything you do, really, whether you're building sales software or or marketing software, you're trying to solve a workflow. You're trying to make it work better for that customer. You know, Gainsight, Calendly, all these things that people are taking a workflow and they're trying to make it better. So thinking about workflows and your customers' work as workflows is a very important idea. But even more important than that is the generalization that not only is everything at work a workflow, and therefore if you build software that targets workflows, you solve problems, you make it better, is the idea that workflows are actually very stable. They're very stable. You wake up in the morning, you try to go to work, you get your coffee, you have breakfast, you get in a car. And you do that over and over again, so your morning workflows are pretty stable. You're a PM, right? You come into work, and you're like, I have these workflows. I got to run a meeting. I got to do stand-up. I have to write a document. I have to influence upwards, and I have to influence sideways. And then you do that again and again. One day I looked at my calendar, and I estimated that I had 100,000 meetings in my career. This was like 2 years ago as a PM. What does that mean? My meeting workflow as a PM, leading teams, driving clarity, had happened a lot of times. And honestly, for most of that time, I didn't have anything to help me. Even Calendly just helps with external meetings. So what does that mean? It means that AI isn't this crazy thing. It's just a new tool for us to solve the workflow problem for people. People have stable workflows. This is very important because sometimes when people see AI, they're like, oh, what's going to change? No. Your customers' workflows are going to be the same. The question is, how do you solve it? How do you compress it? 30 minutes to 2 minutes. How do you give them superpowers? That's what you have to think about. Okay, so let's talk about Formless. We remade Typeform in the era of AI. When I got to Typeform, I had a gift. The co-founder, the former CEO of Typeform, David Okuniev, had stepped down. There was a new CEO, and he had created this really small team, this like crack team of, it was like an incubator. I eventually called it Typeform Labs, and it was a gift. Because Typeform Labs, the 3 or 4 people there, were working with AI already. We're building new products. At the time when I got there, they were working on a collaboration product called Relate. But it wasn't quite on strategy. It was different. We needed more. We needed to do something on strategy, which is why I was there. So when GPT 3.0 and 3.5 came out, we're like, okay, what should we do? And David and I started to think about this, and we started to say, what if we could rebuild Typeform? I made AI a priority for the company, but I'm like, what if we went further? What if we took labs and did something more amazing? And so we said, okay, we got to do, if we could rebuild, because we knew that somewhere somebody in Europe or someone in Silicon Valley was trying to do exactly what we're thinking about, trying to rebuild Typeform, trying to rebuild this workflow in a native way. And they're going to raise a lot of money. So we're like, let's do it ourselves. Let's be our own lab. Let's be our own Y Combinator. And so we started to make some key decisions about this. We wanted to go native. We wanted to move fast. So we came up with a few principles. We said we will disrupt ourselves, right? Now, the reason I'm going into part of this stuff is that you all have to probably make this decision. As you think about building AI into your existing software or doing something new, you're going to confront this. Now, I'm not saying that you should make the exact same decision I'm making, but I'll tell you the decisions we made. We decided to disrupt ourselves. We decided that to go fast, to learn quickly, we're going to have to think about it more natively. We're not just going to do this on top of old Typeform. To do that, we have to think, what is valuable about Typeform in the first place, right? Conversation. We simulated conversations with Typeform, right? Presentation of data, right? The slick user interface was something that was important. And then we started to think about data. We weren't very good at data at Typeform, actually, but how do we make data, which is so important to AI, really sing in this new thing, right? And we started to dig into it, and we uncovered many, many hard problems. There's so many memories. Like one time we took a 30-minute walk in Barcelona, and we're like, what should we even call this? And that's how we came up with the name Formless, because we wanted to make the form disappear. We came up with the components, conversations, presentation, and data. Those were our principles. We decided that as we were building this, the prompts that we were using to construct this stuff was code. So we wanted to version prompts, right? All new stuff that we didn't do for the last decade. And then one more amazing thing is that we found that it wasn't even consistent. We wanted this thing to have personalized conversations with everybody, but sometimes it would hallucinate. How do we stop it from hallucinating, right? These are all things we have to grapple with, and you probably have to grapple with, because the hallucination problem is important. If it's not consistent, how do you test it? Testing works because you give it an input and you expect an output, right? What if it's an AI that doesn't give you a determined output? We send the same prompt to an AI, it can give us two different responses in the ballpark. How do you test in that situation? These are things you have to contend with. And finally, if you're going to have a conversation with an AI like a form, but it's free-form conversation, how do you turn that back into data, right? And then how do you query the data? All important things. So what we came up with was the video you saw. Every form is basically an infinitely personalized. In fact, Formless can have a conversation with 8 billion people, all different, based on what they said to it, right? And at the same time, we will still get the data we need out of you and have you continue to talk to it if you want it. In fact, we could feed it all of Typeform support, all of Typeform sales techniques. So once you're done chatting and giving us your name and so on and so forth, you could ask questions. Oh, how can Typeform help me? If you are like an IBM, you could feed it your tech support. And so after getting the data from your prospects, they can ask more questions. So Formless actually became not just a way to get data from people, but a way to share information with them. It became partly a salesperson, which was incredible. But that's not all, obviously. We enjoy that. It was a great process, and hopefully at some point you get to ask questions. But we also started to put AI into old Typeform, because of course, this was a principle for us. So some of the things we started to ask ourselves with old Typeform as we started to bring AI into it, not in the same way with Formless, which was ground up, was how can we increase time to value, right? How can we make mobile easier? People don't like to create on mobile. But what we did was, instead of having people create a form by themselves, we asked you to describe what you wanted. What kinds of questions do you want to ask? What's your objective? Please write me a form that will ask my high school class a few questions about the reunion, and Typeform would make it for you immediately. So something that would take you 20 minutes now took a minute. And then we started to use it for growth. We're talking about product-led growth. One of the things that we started to do was when you come into Typeform, instead of directing you to your dashboard and saying create a form for the first thing, activation, we would just make it for you. Based on the things you asked us, we asked you up front, you would make your form. And all of a sudden, we started to see people start to choose Typeform over other competitors because we had applied AI to very specific problems, to the problem of growth and activation, to the problem of time to value. One of the main things we did, like I said, was really this thing, create with AI. So if you go to Typeform, this is one of the main options to create with AI. We'll ask you a few questions and it's all taken care of. Now, mind you, some of the stuff you do with AI sometimes takes an hour. So doing it very fast made a lot of difference. So this is second to the last slide, and I'll talk about this. I want to share with you some of the new KPIs that we said to use with AI. This is very important. I'm not saying that you should thrash all your KPIs because your products make sense. I'm saying that if you're building with AI, you need a few new metrics to understand what you're doing. So I'll suggest a few. Time to value, right? Can you use AI to get your customers to experience value faster than you did before? This is very important for product-led growth. So we measure that, and we track that, and we put it on a chart. The second one is workflow length. If it takes 5 minutes to do a thing inside your software today, how can you use AI to make it a fraction, less than 3x of what it is? Instead of taking 10 clicks, right, to create a very sophisticated lead qualification form, how can you do it in 3 clicks? This is workflow length. How can you reduce it? Another thing, tweak time. In the early days of GPT, when you had, created a document, a summarization or something like that, sometimes it wasn't good enough. Who can remember all the DALL-E 2 things with all those images that couldn't have hands and so on and so forth? They weren't very good. And the thing is, if you use AI in a way that produces 80% accuracy, people eventually have to take time to tweak it, to change it, to make it perfect for them. Now, even if you've shortened it by 20x, the time it takes for them to tweak it to be perfect adds to their workflow, right? And so if the tweak time is too large to get to perfection, you have to track it, because if it is, then the people will not perceive any value from it. And then lastly, maybe the most important thing is feature return. If you deploy an AI feature, do people come back to it? At Typeform, we saw 30–50% of people come back to a feature after they'd used an AI feature after they'd used, which gave us a lot of confidence. So let's recap a few things. Transformer-based AI is here to stay. And that's the new thing. It's not NLP. It is not machine learning. This is what's going to be the future. The second thing is everyone is learning how to paint. You have to be one of the people who paints really well in AI-based software. It's really important. 3, it will drive down the cost of building. All of a sudden, it will take only $100,000 to build a $100 million company, and the world will change because of that. It will change venture capital. It will change your job. People who build LLM at the core will start to win more than people who don't, people who just use it at the edge. So we have to learn how to do that. And then lastly, don't forget to measure the right thing. If you measure the right thing, then you will start to see incremental advantage when you use these techniques. Don't measure bullshit. And so the last thing I want to do is, when I talk about these things, sometimes I scare people. They're like, shit, can I keep up? What's going to happen in the future? So I want everyone to just raise their hand, because we're going to do a small pledge. Just raise your hand. I'm not going to make you say anything crazy, right? I want to empower you. I want to empower you to be ready for the next generation of building AI software, which, whether you know it or not, will happen. So say after me. I'm going to say it twice. I will understand the tech behind transformer-based AI. Say it. I will understand the technology behind transformer-based AI. This part of the pledge is so that you go back and figure it out. Go do some research, okay? You can't all be civilians. No one here is a civilian. You're in the army, okay? The second part of the pledge, raise your hand, keep it raised. I will use it every week. I will use it every week. Yes, this is a commitment device. I want you get your ChatGPT subscription, even if your company doesn't buy it, pay for it, use it. Okay? And then raise your hand again one more time. I will be creative with it. You're going to start to write your own tools and so on and so forth. So that's it. So thank you very much, everyone. Follow me on Substack and LinkedIn. The book will come out in the fall. And thank you very much.